At 30 a man should know himself like the palm of his hand, know the exact number of his defects and qualities, know how far he can go, foretell his failures, be what he is. And, above all, accept these things. Why should it be essential to love rarely in order to love much? As a remedy to life and society, I would suggest the big city. Nowadays, it is the only desert within our means. The artist forges himself to the others, midway between the beauty he cannot do without and the community he cannot tear himself away from. That is why true artists scorn nothing. They are obliged to understand rather than to judge. Heroism is accessible. Happiness is more difficult. We get into the habit of living before acquiring the habit of thinking. In that race which daily hastens us towards death, the body maintains its irreparable lead. Retaliation is related to nature and instinct, not to law. Law, by definition, cannot obey the same rules as nature. Each generation doubtless feels called upon to reform the world. Mine knows that it will not reform it, but its task is perhaps even greater. It consists in preventing the world from destroying itself. How can sincerity be a condition of friendship? A taste for truth at any cost is a passion which spares nothing. The myth of unlimited production brings war in its train as inevitably as clouds announce a storm. Charm is a way of getting the answer yes without asking a clear question. When you have really exhausted an experience, you always reverence and love it. To cut short the question of the law of retaliation, we must note that even in its primitive form it can operate only between two individuals of whom one is absolutely innocent, and the other absolutely guilty. The victim, to be sure, is innocent. But can the society that is supposed to represent the victim lay claim to innocence? The desire for possession is insatiable, to such a point that it can survive even love itself. To love, therefore, is to sterilize the person one loves. The day when I am no more than a writer, I shall cease to be a writer. I draw from the absurd three consequences: my revolt, my liberty, my passion. I grew up with the sea, and poverty for me was sumptuous. Then I lost the sea and found all luxuries gray and poverty unbearable. We continue to shape our personality all our life. If we knew ourselves perfectly, we should die. In order to exist just once in the world, it is necessary never again to exist. Violence is both unavoidable and unjustifiable. Virtue cannot separate itself from reality without becoming a principle of evil. In order to exist, man must rebel, but rebellion must respect the limits that it discovers in itself, limits where minds meet, and in meeting, begin to exist. A taste for truth at any cost is a passion which spares nothing. For if there is a sin against life, it consists perhaps not so much in despairing of life as in hoping for another life and in eluding the implacable grandeur of this life. We are all special cases. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy. Men are convinced of your arguments, your sincerity, and the seriousness of your efforts only by your death. Man is an idea, and a precious small idea once he turns his back on love. No matter what cause one defends, it will suffer permanent disgrace if one resorts to blind attacks on crowds of innocent people. Truly fertile music, the only kind that will move us, that we shall truly appreciate, will be a music conducive to dream, which banishes all reason and analysis. One must not wish first to understand and then to feel. Art does not tolerate reason. We used to wonder where war lived, what it was that made it so vile. And now we realize that we know where it lives, inside ourselves. Don't believe your friends when they ask you to be honest with them. All they really want is to be maintained in the good opinion they have of themselves. Men are never really willing to die except for the sake of freedom, therefore they do not believe in dying completely. Lying is not only saying what isn't true. It is also, in fact especially, saying more than is true and, in the case of the human heart, saying more than one feels. We all do it, every day, to make life simpler. To abandon oneself to principles is really to die, and to die for an impossible love which is the contrary of love. How hard, how bitter it is to become a man. To ensure the adoration of a theorem for any length of time, faith is not enough, a police force is needed as well. Rebellion cannot exist without the feeling that somewhere, in some way, you are justified. All modern revolutions have ended in a reinforcement of the power of the state. Those who write clearly have readers, those who write obscurely have commentators. At any street corner the feeling of absurdity can strike any man in the face. Against eternal injustice, man must assert justice, and to protest against the universe of grief, he must create happiness. Truth, like light, blinds. Falsehood, on the contrary, is a beautiful twilight that enhances every object. To be famous, in fact, one has only to kill one's landlady. Too many have dispensed with generosity in order to practice charity. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. The society based on production is only productive, not creative. Real nobility is based on scorn, courage, and profound indifference. I am not made for politics because I am incapable of wanting or accepting the death of the adversary. To correct a natural indifference I was placed halfway between misery and the sun. Misery kept me from believing that all was well under the sun, and the sun taught me that history wasn't everything. I have never been able to renounce the light, the pleasure of being, and the freedom in which I grew up. In order to speak about all and to all, one has to speak of what all know and of the reality common to us all. The sea, rains, necessity, desire, the struggle against death, these are things that unite us all. All that I know most surely about morality and obligations I owe to football. Culture, the cry of men in face of their destiny. Every man needs slaves like he needs clean air. To rule is to breathe, is it not? And even the most disenfranchised get to breathe. The lowest on the social scale have their spouses or their children. What is a rebel? A man who says no, but whose refusal does not imply a renunciation. Note, besides, that it is no more immoral to directly rob citizens than to slip indirect taxes into the price of goods that they cannot do without. Every great work makes the human face more admirable and richer, and that is its whole secret. I should like to be able to love my country and still love justice. I was born poor and without religion, under a happy sky, feeling harmony, not hostility, in nature. I began not by feeling torn, but in plenitude.